Welcome back to another episode of 40 Facts About the 40K Universe. I am your host Gershwin and you are watching One Mind Syndicate. Today we continue talking about the Space Marines as we get into the horrible realities of the daily life of a Space Marine. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. We post Warhammer 40K lore videos every single day. And if you have any suggestions, comment down below. And don't forget to hit the little bell notification icon to stay updated just to see if we do create your video. If you enjoy our content, thank our patrons on Patreon. It's because of them that we can do this. Link in the description if you guys want to support us. But with all of that said, let's get into the horrible realities of the life of an Adeptus Astartes. To be a Space Marine is to be seen as an angel of the God Emperor made flesh. Every Space Marine exudes awe and fear, whether stomping through battlefields or the Imperial Palace. But behind the ornate power armor and the honorable heraldry lies a sinister truth. One of brutal sacrifice and appalling reality. These are known as the horrible realities of a Space Marine's life. The sorrow of a Space Marine doesn't begin during his induction into his chapter, or even before the minuscule spark of his potential greatness is spotted by an Astartes chaplain. It begins long before, when a child is pushed down the unfortunate path completely out of his control that will eventually mold him to be a prime recruit for the greatest of the Emperor of Mankind's warriors. Every Space Marine has a brutal past of abuse, long before they become demigods in the eyes of mortal men. A chaplain handpicks his recruits, all of which are adolescents or very young adults, oftentimes as young as 10 years old. But even by this tender age, these recruits display a natural psychotic killer instinct. What horrible experiences must befall a 10-year-old boy to cause him to lack basic empathy and instead nurture an instinct of savagery can vary. But the sad reality is that to be a Space Marine is to have suffered since birth. The most common planet Space Marines collect recruits from are feral worlds. These are places where danger is found around every single corner. The harsh environment of the world has made it impossible for the human population living there to evolve past the tribal or nomadic state. The ancient settlers of these worlds were shunned from communication with a wider Imperium due to environmental abnormalities, be they warp-driven or biological, and so they are devoid of the technological sophisticated gifts of the Adeptus Mechanicus. The children that come from these worlds have lived through experiences that would be considered nightmares to even the common Imperial citizen. To be born on this type of planet is to be guaranteed a life devoid of peace and happiness. They are raised on worlds filled with predators. They have seen beasts that tower over humans and have the power to snap a full-grown man in two with a simple flick of the wrist. Some have traveled through waters filled with unknown creatures that lurk in the shadowy depths. They have experienced the dread of watching their tribesmen drowned by these sea monsters, then leaving the dead bodies to float on the water surface. They have come from worlds where more often than not, they are the ones hunted, where giant airborne creatures swoop down and pick them off like hawks preying on mice, or where feline creatures sit in wait to ambush unaware travelers. These children have seen the horrible ways the galaxy has mutated the human form, grotesque abnormalities driving whole tribes insane and pushing them down a path of savagery to the point where they are robbed of their own humanity. The plants and animals they rely on these worlds can turn on their own caretakers in the blink of an eye. One minute a child is watering his garden, the next the vines of the plants are wrapping tighter around the child's neck. The savagery of the environment often spreads into the tribes of humans that populate the planet. Tribes go to war for the little resources the planet offers them. Humans kill humans as a means of survival, and children live through the murder of their own parents as they are taken by one of these many horrible realities that a feral world has in store. That is, of course, if the boy was not already born an orphan. On other recruitment worlds, the quality of life for future Astartes is no better. Hive Worlds are often perfect cultivators for truly psychotic killers, for in these cramped and filthy cities, hive gangs flourish, and the strong prey on the weak. For those unfortunate children, hive cities are where children are bartered and sold to become workers of manufactorums, or foot soldiers for their owners' hive gangs. Sometimes babies are ripped from their mothers and become payment for long-standing debts. Potential Space Marines begin their path to their chapter without even knowing, as hive gangs mold their abducted children into killing machines. As soon as they are old enough to hold the last pistol, these children are sent into rival gang territory to shoot indiscriminately and deliver a brutal message on behalf of their gang lords. They are injected with chemicals to increase their aggression and at the same time take their mind off the pain and regret they feel for the actions they commit. Dependence on these drugs grow year after year until they cannot get out of bed without an injection of some stimulant. Foot soldiers need to be replenished, and at the cost of mental scarring, the children must induct new recruits and force them through the same abuse that was placed on them only a few years ago. In the end, to be chosen by a chaplain of the Adeptus Astartes indicates a horrible upbringing. A few Space Marine chapters do not recruit from these agonizing worlds. They will take their neophytes from honorable warrior conclaves or from highborn society. But to these future recruits, the pain and suffering has only been delayed, for even these future neophytes will experience the dread of the aspirant trial and the indoctrination process that all battle brothers must go through. Once selected as an aspirant, the 10-year-old starts his trials. The trials vary from chapter to chapter, but all of these traditional feats of strength are designed to push out the aspirants whom are too weak for the future that awaits them. In most chapters, the aspirants must fight each other. Sometimes the children will be given melee weapons like swords, clubs, or spears. Sometimes they are given nothing at all and are left to fight each other with their bare fists. The one common feature of these blood duel trials is that in the end, it is death. The aspirants fight round after round, only progressing until their opponent is laying lifeless on the floor. Other chapters expect their aspirants to hunt down the same creatures that plague their past. Predatory creatures from feral worlds, lethal Dark Eldar, and even barbarous greenskin orcs. These are all creatures that the aspirant must track down and kill. All of these aspirant trials have one expected outcome: the death of the majority of the aspirants. The few that remain will continue down the painful path into the indoctrination process. To become a Space Marine, the aspirant must be implanted with the gene seed organs that will turn him into an Astartes. A painful and agonizing process that will last about 8 years. The neophyte will go through this incredible biological change that will bring unfathomable pain. While his body is going through numerous cycles of breaking and healing, the neophyte's mind will be probed by his Space Marine masters. Their deepest, darkest memories will be taken and played on repeat, purposefully made to seem never-ending in the hopes of breaking the mind. The day the child watched his mother die, the day his body was severely burned, the day he first witnessed the horrors of the warp. Probes will search every corner of the mind in the hopes of finding the best memory to test the child. If no memory is sufficient enough in the eyes of the Astartes, a fake memory will be created, one that will not be distinguishable as false, in the hopes of testing the mind and guaranteeing it's not found wanting. At this point on the path to becoming an Astartes, most neophytes will go insane, driven mad by the constant picking and poking of their minds. The majority that succumb to the madness will be lobotomized and turned into chapter servitors, a sad outcome to a child warrior that has gone through so much. For all of those that survive the grueling 8 years awaits a sinister reality, because after the physical and psychological testing, the person that existed before is completely gone. Each Astartes is stripped of his past, his name long erased from the memory of the demigod that stands before his chapter. In many ways, the process of becoming an Astartes kills the child that was there before. Recollection of his life before becoming a Space Marine is almost impossible, and for an Astartes to even take the time to try to remember his past life would seem pointless to this stoic warrior of the Emperor. One can even agree that the whole ordeal is the chapter's way of stealing children, brainwashing neophytes, and implanting transhumans with new identities, ones that are easily controlled and directed to perform the Imperium's bidding. When stripped of the power, the ceremony, and the authority, there is very little that sets a Space Marine's recruitment process apart from the recruitment process of a hive gang. The end result is the same: an abiding servant capable of killing at a simple command. Once a full-fledged battle brother, the life of a Space Marine is most often a regimental ritual, a cycle of prayer, training, eating, and sleeping. The praying is done multiple times a day and at least once in front of a chapter's chaplain. This ceremony is spoken of as a venerating process, but the truth is that it is a re-indoctrination process made to remind the Marine that his life is not his own, but it belongs to the God Emperor and nothing else. The mind of a Space Marine is dulled to accept his lifestyle, only broken free when asked to murder in the name of the Emperor. But even the actions of a Space Marine are not coming from his own will, but rather the will of the Emperor. The strength and glory of becoming a demigod comes with a prize, and that prize is individual freedom. When out of the fortification of a fortress monastery and exposed to the many threats that exist in the galaxy, a Space Marine will inevitably be confronted with a sad reality. This reality will be made clear upon the first encounter with a mortal human. The sad, defenseless creature he once was and must now fight to protect. Most Space Marines will find the average military commander or High Lord an annoyance to speak to. Their primitive grasp on reality compared to the advanced Astarte mind is equivalent to a human watching a mouse run a maze. The constant bickering and lack of resolve is the true reason most Space Marines choose to fight on their own terms. The worst part is the reality that a Space Marine dies for this primitive creature. A Space Marine is forced to sacrifice everything in an effort to allow this weak, senseless imperium of man exist. Space Marines must live with the knowledge of the disapproval the Emperor himself would have on humans. The Imperial Truth outlawed his worship, and yet entire planetary sectors erect cathedral after cathedral. Silently, the Astarte is forced to stand vigil over a population that had strayed so far from the Emperor's true teachings and continues to bastardize the work of the Great Crusade with corruption and petty infighting. And while most of the Space Marines that have come before have been able to find comfort in the knowledge that they alone stand above all of the other defenders of the Imperium of Man, that position is short-lived with the introduction of the Primaris Marines. Astartes, loyal to the Imperium, even through the defamation of the Emperor's teachings, raised with the belief that they have been gifted the holy gene seed of the Primarchs themselves, are now pushed aside by a stronger and more revered class of warrior. The psychological trauma that will befall a Space Marine who will be outclassed in every aspect of war is incredibly profound. Space Marines of old become a shadow of their superior brethren and their Primaris gene seed. And those were 40 facts on the life of a Space Marine. If you guys enjoyed this video, thank our patrons on Patreon. It's because of them that we can do this. Link in the description if you guys want to support us. It's $1 a month. This is a remake. I created this script probably like 2 years ago. Since then, I feel like the videos have improved a lot. So a video that I spent this much time writing, I think deserves a retouch-up. So here it is. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and it's a little more entertaining now that the lore is coupled with just better imagery. So thank you guys for all the support that you guys have been showing. It's been a very long time since we've been doing Warhammer 40K lore, and I just want to say thank you guys. But with that said, I'll talk to you tomorrow. This is Gersh1 with One Mind Syndicate signing out.
Always used to put my freedom first in any situation.